Does God want a separation of church and state? Should Christians be voting biblical principles? Does it really matter who you vote for? Join Pastor Jerry Cook as he endeavors to answer these and many other questions over the next hour on Politics in the Pulpit. And now, Pastor Jerry Cook.
Good afternoon and welcome to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station, AM 1220 and FM 98.1, right here in the beautiful Santa Clarita Valley in the heart of Southern California. Hope you're enjoying your day today, and obviously it's a little bit cooler than yesterday, but it's still pretty warm out there, but it's summer, so get used to it, folks. You're obviously listening to Politics in the Pulpit, the show where we talk about the two things that we're not supposed to talk about in public at all, religion and politics, and that's, of course, this is the show where we talk about both of those things openly and in your face. Today we're excited to have a brand new call-in guest, someone that I've gleaned from over the years and have enjoyed his books and enjoyed many of his columns. Kurt Schlichter is a senior columnist for Town Hall. He's a trial lawyer, we'll forgive him for that, a retired Army infantry colonel. Kurt is also the author of several books, and you can find him on Twitter at Kurt Schlichter. Great to have you on today on Politics in the Pulpit, Kurt.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad that you have braved staying in Southern California. I know that you might be thinking about moving at some point, but thanks for staying in California, even though it's a lunatic lefty state.
No, it's my state. It's just infested with these rodents, and I don't see any reason why I should leave a place with this weather and the excitement of California. I grew up here under Ronald Reagan,
yeah,
and I remember growing up here, and it never occurred to me there was anything I couldn't do.
Absolutely,
it never occurred to me, and I lived my life that way. I became a soldier. I became a stand-up comic. I became a lawyer. I became a best-selling author. I wanted to do something, and I just went and did it because I was a Californian, and this is where you come to do what you want to do. And it kills me when I see young kids today growing up thinking they can't do anything. That's not my California.
No, I completely agree, Kurt, and it's so dispiriting, really, to hear how people view our state around the country. Real quick, before we get into your latest addition here to Town Hall, I have some church members who go to Cody, Wyoming, every year for their big rodeo thing that they've got there in Cody, and they were there just a few weeks ago, and the rodeo hand was saying, "Hey, anybody here from Georgia?" And everybody would say, "Yeah." Anybody here from this place? Yeah. Then they'd say, "Anybody here from California?" And there might have been a handful of people, and then all of a sudden the radio announcer said, "Welcome to the United States."
Oh, that's nice.
And that's unfortunate how they're viewing us, right, Kurt?
Well, I spend a lot of time in Texas too, and it's kind of a drag, but, Californians have kind of done it to themselves. I mean, back in the 70s, California was, kind of nutty and wacky, but it was cute.
Yeah.
We were still a state where you could come and have a family and live, and live well in the sun. You can't get your own house. I mean, it was a really great place to be. And, we had our eccentric characters, which has made it, fun. And then somewhere along the way, it stopped being fun, and it started embracing bizarre social pathologies, and then it became a real problem.
Well, you submitted a great article today at Town Hall. It's called "Kamala Has Peaked," and I wanted you to just kind of give the listeners a little bit of what you had to say here in your article, where you say, "My record on predictions is mixed. I'm not at a disadvantage because I grew up in America," and so on and so forth. But you think Kamala has peaked. Explain.
Yeah, I don't think she gets any. I think she's doing as well right now in the polls, which are a lagging indicator. The polls show what the race about a week or two ago. And I think she goes down. I don't see any evidence of Trump's numbers significantly dropping. What I see is what anybody who's rational would expect, which is when Biden was revealed to be a desiccated, corrupt old pervert who was senile. A lot of Democrats said, look, I'm not a Republican. I'm a liberal guy. I just can't vote for this guy, though. And they pulled back, and he lost ground. Trump didn't really gain ground. He lost ground. And now they have Kamala, who they don't really know, but they've been told by the media, she's brat. Not amazing. And they will figure that out. She's going on, what, day 17 of not taking a question?
Exactly.
I mean, nice record. If you had 17, home runs in a row, you'd be, pretty popular. I don't think, I think people are going to have a problem with a basement campaign for somebody who's not senile or allegedly dodging COVID.
Yeah.
I think she's eventually going to have to come out and say something besides, "Oh, I love you, Beyonce," and it's and she's not going to do well. She's an unimpressive person. Picking Tim Walz is let's put aside the disgraceful bigotry of not picking Josh Shapiro because he's Jewish.
Sure.
Just embarrassing, disgusting. And it's not merely that he's Jewish; it's that he's actually practicing.
Yeah.
Okay. She and her gang of scumbags do not like religious people. Our religion, Jewish folks, anybody who actually believes in something greater than the power of the state, it just don't want anything to do with. But her selection of Tim Walz. She didn't want someone who would compete with her. She didn't want someone who would overshadow her, which really limited her choices. And she found somebody who sucked up to her, and that was Tim Walz. And that I look at Tim Walz as a military guy. I'm an Army colonel, and I see that. One of that group of sergeant majors who gets where they're going, not because they are great leaders of troops and advocates for the soldiers and are willing to shut the door on the commander and go, "Sir, you are messing up." And I had that conversation as a commander. And because I listened, I was a good commander. But instead, there's a certain kind that enables all your bad instincts by telling you you're great all the time. And that's a skill he learned to raise up in the Guard as far as he went. Of course, he went backwards because he didn't do what he had to go all the way. And I think that's what he did to Kamala. There's reports she came out, "Oh, I really liked him. We just really connected." Yeah, I'll bet you connected.
The reports that I read is they met in March while touring a abortion clinic, and they connected there.
That's just the most grotesque thing.
I guess the right goes to church to meet their folks, and the left goes to abortion clinics.
The whole abortion thing, I don't know any way to describe it except demonic.
Yeah.
What is this obsession with killing babies?
I understand
people panicking in a time of crisis, in a moment of weakness. They don't know any better. They make a terrible choice. I understand that. People are human beings. They are fallen. Thankfully, there's a solution for that.
Yeah.
But I'm no fan of Bill Clinton, but he approached it as safe, legal, and rare.
Yeah.
Okay. I want it, gone, but at least he's not saying it's a good thing. I remember a very liberal friend going, "Nobody thinks abortion's a good thing."
Yeah.
But, they do now. They celebrate this. They celebrate, you look at the Olympics, it's a celebration of perversions. It is, like I said, it is demonic. It is celebrating evil, which I think is a little different than, people doing evil, which is what people do. But you don't celebrate it. But
Yeah.
yet they do. They have a whole political party based on killing babies.
Yeah. If you're just tuning into Politics in the Pulpit this afternoon, you're listening to Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist for Town Hall, and of course retired Army infantry colonel. And you can find him on Twitter at Kurt Schlichter. One of the things that I've been hearing in the last couple of weeks, Kurt, is that the Trump team was somehow blindsided by the Kamala pick. What are your thoughts on that? That doesn't seem, in other words, it seems to be discrediting the Trump team to one extent, but I was thinking that they were looking at this saying Biden was inevitably going to step aside at some point, and they were going to end up putting Kamala in there. Your thoughts about whether or not the Trump team was blindsided by Kamala?
Well, they weren't blindsided. I didn't. Frankly, I thought Biden was going to hold on. It turns out he's even more weakless, spineless, and gutless than I imagined, which is, I've got a pretty good imagination.
And thankfully you have no opinion.
Well, but the thing is, enemy courses of action. Most likely course of action, he stays in. Second most likely course of action, pulls out, Kamala comes in. Of course you're going to plan. And in fact, Chris LaCivetta, is his campaign manager, one of his campaign managers, or Susie Wiles, is a Marine. Of course they thought this through. I'm blindsided. Come on. Everything's, good Lord, everything off the regime media is propaganda.
And do you also
can't believe a thing they say?
And do you also think, Kurt, that the early debate between Trump and Biden was kind of like their way of saying, hey, we got to figure out whether or not this guy can go the distance?
I don't give them credit for thinking that thing. We have this image of our opponents as like these, cunning Bond villains stroking a cat in a volcano lair.
That would be cool, though.
Yeah, that would be totally cool. That would make us James Bond.
Sure, that's true.
But unfortunately, it's more like Paul Blart dealing with the dummy who's trying to steal a baseball cap at the mall.
Yeah.
Okay. It is. I mean, these are not criminal geniuses. They are incredibly flawed people. They are not particularly cunning. People go, Kurt, there's a giant conspiracy, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, at some point, malice becomes indistinguishable from gross negligence. I get it. I just don't believe in conspiracy theories in general because I just don't think people are smart. The kind of people who are supposed to be pulling them off are smart enough to do it.
Yeah.
So I look, Joe Biden has always had this weird, he's at once got this inflated self-image and also at some level understands what a completely unimpressive person he is. And that's why he gets so angry whenever somebody, questions his intelligence. I mean, he just if somebody comes up to me and goes, Kurt, you're an idiot, I just laugh at him. I'm not an idiot. I'm comfortable with how smart I am. He gets mad.
Yeah.
And he gets mad because he's defensive, because he's got, his imposter syndrome. He knows he doesn't belong there. But he also, at the same time, thinks he does. So he's like, well, I'll take this Trump guy on. And, he's, once again, surrounded by yes men. And nobody said, Joe, this is a terrible idea, and you shouldn't do it.
Looking back at some of your articles, Kurt, on Town Hall, I remember there was one, I think it was earlier this year, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have the title off the top of my head, but you'd kind of come to the conclusion that it seemed like Trump looks like he could win. And there might have been some doubts, prior to that. So
I had huge doubts.
And so here we are, we're, less than 90 days or so from the election. And a few days ago, Donald Trump was in Georgia, and which is a battleground state that he's going to need. Obviously, both of them are going to vie for it. And he's attacking Brian Kemp and Raffensperger, and does so for, 5 or 6 minutes, I think. Now, I'm not the biggest Brian Kemp fan. I'm not the biggest Raffensperger fan. But what's the strategery, to use George Bush's term here? What's the strategery there with attacking Kemp on his home turf?
Look, I am a strategist because I have a degree from the War College in strategy. Trump doesn't deal with strategy. Trump deals with gut instinct, and he's got very good ones.
Yeah.
He is the best communicator probably since Ronald Reagan. I mean, he knows how to send a message. The attacks on Kamala Harris for alternatively emphasizing being an Indian, being black, it was brilliant.
It was.
Because
Yep.
it showed her as inauthentic. Well, you're questioning her race. He doesn't care about her race. He cares that she's a phony, and he knows how to communicate that in ways that, the bow tie kind of sissy Republicans, we should only be talking about policy. Dude, I stand in front of juries to get them to make decisions every single day. Well, not every single day, but a lot. And facts are very important. So is painting a bigger picture. That's what Trump does. So there's no strategy. Look, I would love Trump to do exactly what I'm comfortable with all the time. But Trump is Trump is not Golden Corral, where you get a plate and you will put only what you want on it. Okay? With Trump, he's a fixed-price menu at a snooty restaurant where the chef doesn't allow substitutions or alterations.
Yeah.
You're going to get what he wants to give you, and some of the stuff you're going to like, and some of the stuff you're not. You're going to like the salmon foam, but you're not going to like the candied asparagus.
No doubt about that.
Okay.
Kurt, you're obviously a retired Army infantry colonel, and news is just...
about salmon foam.
No, I'm talking about salmon foam, exactly. Obviously, news has broke in the last 24 hours, and it's gotten bigger today about the whole stolen valor situation. In your opinion, did Waltz lie about his Coast Guard record of being deployed and actually seeing action?
Well, look, what he did is... there are a couple things he lied about and a couple things he kind of shaded the truth. And you have to overlay all that with a certain vibe that if you're not a military person, you're going to have a very hard time understanding. And I'll start with that. As a military guy, I look at Tim Waltz and the kind of things he's done, and I know exactly who he is. Okay? He's a dirtbag senior NCO. Non-commissioned officer, senior sergeant. I look at from the officer side. I look at him, other officers look at him, and we see every NCO who let us down throughout our careers. You've got to understand what an NCO is. He is the backbone of the Army. He is the guy who works directly with the soldiers, and a command sergeant major, which is what Waltz was temporarily. He didn't have the full rank, though he says he does. And still refers to him as a command sergeant major, even though he didn't really earn it permanently. I mean, the guy, he is. If you ever saw We Were Soldiers Once and Young, he's Sam Neill.
Yeah,
he's the commander's right hand man. He's the guy who can shut the door and tell you you're wrong, and you better listen. If he's good, there are a certain class of them who are just not good, who are phonies. Who want to get over and just like being the sergeant major, but not doing the sergeant major's job. And, they're bad officers too, but we're talking about senior NCOs here. Good NCOs despise them. Junior enlisted understand that these guys do not do their job. The sergeant major's not supposed to be nice to the troops. He's supposed to be their advocate and their protector. Okay, he's the guy who gets in front of the officers and says, "Sir, you're screwing with that young soldier, and you need to back off." And, a respected sergeant major can say that, and, a general will back off. But a dirtbag one will go, "Oh, no, General, do whatever you want."
But on a quick note, do you think this stolen valor story will actually gain some traction?
Oh, it's huge. Among the veterans, and there are about 15 or 20 million of us, it is on fire among the veterans. If you're a veteran and not one of these lame veterans. There are some leftist veterans, and they're just gross. You're not liking him. He came out. One of the things that really got me. He did not go to a combat zone, and lots of people don't. Okay, The reason he didn't is he chose to avoid it. He was a sergeant major of a battalion that was alerted to go. He chose to get out rather than go with them. Inconceivable to me and most other guys. Also, later at a gun-grabbing rally where he was, spitting on his oath to protect the Constitution by talking about taking our guns, he said, "Where's no place for weapons of war like I carried in wartime?" Okay, or war. He didn't go to war. He didn't carry a gun in war. He's lying. That's stolen valor. It's mortifying.
Kurt, can I carry you over to the end for the next segment?
Certainly.
Absolutely. We're listening to Politics in the Pulpit here on your hometown station. We're talking to Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist for Town Hall, and we'll talk to Kurt about what's going on in Great Britain and the Prime Minister over there and a bunch of right-wing guys. So when we come back on Politics in the Pulpit. All right, here we are at the bottom of the hour for Politics in the Pulpit on your hometown station, AM 1220 and FM 98.1. And you are listening, of course, to your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, Pastor Jerry Cook, where we talk about the two things we're not supposed to talk about in public at all, and that's religion and politics. And today we're going to talk about both of them. And, of course, our guest today is Kurt Schlichter, senior columnist for Town Hall, retired Army infantry colonel. He's authored several books down through the years, and you can find him on Twitter at Kurt Schlichter. And Kurt, thanks for sticking with us for another few more minutes here on this bottom side of the hour. I wanted to ask you a little bit about it, going from America and now looking over the pond here to Great Britain. And obviously we've got the first big test for Prime Minister Starmer, who, of course, is... really conservative, no doubt about that. But there was a mass stabbing that occurred on July 29th in which 3 kids were killed. And then according to the news sources that I've been reading, the person that stabbed the kids was incorrectly ID'd as a Muslim asylum seeker. What is your take on this story? And of course, Starmer is saying that these are all right-wing agitators causing all these issues. What's going on in the mind of Kurt Schlichter with what's going on with Prime Minister Starmer?
Well, he's using this as an opportunity to totally discredit patriotic, normal Britons who don't want to change their country into a third world country and don't want to invite the third world in. They were never consulted about the change in their demographics. They were never asked. And when they raised questions about it, they were called racist. And now they're being arrested. What's happening in Britain, Britain's not a free country.
Yeah.
It simply isn't. And Britain is yet another example of what happens when you give up your guns and allow a bunch of neutered managers who somehow get a hold of the police and military to run things. And they will run things in a COVID-like manner, oppressing you forever. They have absolutely no compunction about totally disenfranchising you. And, we need to understand that is what would happen here if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz had their way. There are different factors here, many different factors, including our federal system. But, a key point is we've got guns. And if, the government wants to make war on the American people, that's probably not a great idea.
A couple weeks ago, Kurt, I played a minute and a half clip from Richard Dawkins, the famed atheist, who, of course, was the author of The God Delusion. And
is he still doing that atheist thing?
Yeah, that's his shtick, Kurt. So yeah, he's going to stick with it.
Well, got to make a living.
So he was being interviewed by a local British show there, and this was right before Christmas last year. And what's interesting is, and I don't know if you've heard this, but he actually called himself a cultural Christian. Of course, dismisses Christianity, of course, but actually said this, and I think it speaks to the issues that these folks in Britain are dealing with right now, is he went on to say, I don't want to see the cultural Christianity that gave us Great Britain disappear, and in the place of these wonderful, magnificent cathedrals, we now see mosques. So here is an atheist who obviously is no friend to Christianity, He's basically saying Christianity is far better for our community and for our country and for our ethics than the Muslim community is. What say you, Kurt?
Well, I mean, he's obviously right. The fact is, Christians are abused because Christians aren't going to turn around and murder you.
How ironic.
Just imagine them doing I don't know what the artistic equivalent of the Last Supper is for Muslims, but imagine them doing that with a bunch of perverts, trans people, weirdos, and creeps at the beginning of the Olympics. Of course, that would never occur to them. It occurs to do to Christians because it's safe to do it to Christians, and you still get the thrill of poking those normal people. It's cowardly, it's stupid, it's boring, but it really illustrates that they are terrified of Muslims. And, frankly, they should be, because they put themselves in such a weak position that, at some point they're going to look around and they're going to realize it's not their country anymore. We're already going through the phases of these things, which is, phase one, it's not happening. Phase two, well, it's not really happening that much. Phase three, it's happening, it's a good thing. And, of course, phase four, you're the problem for noticing it's happening.
Exactly.
We're along that spectrum right now.
A few months ago, I was at a meeting where a bunch of preachers were commiserating a little bit. And we had a special speaker that was a missionary to Muslim countries. And he was actually telling us that the way the Muslims conquered, centuries ago with the sword is not quite the way they're going to do it today. They're actually going to conquer through immigration policy or the lack thereof. And you can see it happening in smatterings of our country, right? Like in Minnesota and Michigan and other places like that, right?
Yes. The problem is liberal Americans, particularly J.D. Vance's single wine women with cats, at some level hate ourselves and want to destroy what we have. I think they hate themselves, really. But yeah, they're spoiled by a prosperity and a safety they didn't earn, other people earned. They have contempt for the people who gave it to them, and they squander it. They're the guys. Here's $5, go invest it, and they're going down to the cultural craps table and losing it all.
Yeah. I want to switch real quickly to a couple of primaries that happened yesterday. One in particular, and it seems that Cori Bush is joining Bowman with the squad alumni. And so I was just wondering what you thought about that defeat, which I think was about an 8-point defeat. But at the same time, the guy that beat her, Bell, he might be slightly better on the issues regarding Israel, but of course is still a lunatic, by conservative standards. What say you?
I think I don't think America is a leftist country yet. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons you see Kamala Harris and Tim Walz pretending to be moderates. There are certain places, the Berkeleys, under that and other names, that do embrace the nonsense, but most of America doesn't. And it's nice to see the people in St. Louis get rid of, one idiot for someone slightly less dumb. I guess it's a kind of progress.
Yeah, it's so funny to see the left eat their own, and it's interesting because you're seeing kind of this dynamic thing happening within the Democrats where they're realizing, yeah, you guys like Alexander Ocasio-Cortez and the Rashid Tlaibs, you guys are lunatics. But on the other hand, I think secretly they probably agree with them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, the heart of the Democrat Party is on the hard left.
Yeah.
And
at least that's where the energy is, right? Right, Kurt?
Well, the energy is always going to be in the extremes. Centrists don't really do anything. The problem for a side is when the other side's centrists start getting activated. I've seen that I've seen that happen with Trump. I've seen a lot of people who were not thrilled with Trump. Now they're ready to be for Trump. That's why I don't see his numbers dropping. I think this is Trump's to lose. Mm-hmm. Not that we can get complacent. I think we need to work twice as hard. And of course, we got to understand anybody on a major party ticket can win. They said Trump had a 10% chance of winning in 2016. You know what happens one time in 10 when there's a 10% chance of something?
Yeah.
Don't get complacent. I think we have the advantage, but it's not a done deal.
Yeah. I want to switch gears quickly, Kurt, and talk a little bit about Bible Christianity. Obviously, you claim Christ as Lord and Savior. Of course, I'm a pastor. I claim Christ as my Lord and Savior. I've been pastoring for 22 years. The name of our church is Freedom's Way Baptist Church up here in Santa Clarita. And one of the things that I've noticed is just the way the left has infiltrated, a lot of our what I would call mainline denominations, even though technically, Lutheran denominations, the Methodists have gone completely nuts. A lot of the Presbyterian.
Methodist.
There you go.
My late father is very active, and he spent a lot of time trying to talk them into being normal. I, of course, quit. He's of course passed away, and which I guess it's almost nice to see him. One bright side, he doesn't have to see what the church has done to itself.
Exactly.
And it has done it to itself. It is, look, I'm not going to pretend to be the best Christian around, but I do kind of think that if you're going to have a church, Jesus should have something to do with it. Just me. And a lot of these Methodists don't. A lot of these mainline Christian people, and I'm missing my air quotes, I don't think are particularly interested in Christ.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And in fact, I think a lot of what we saw during COVID, obviously COVID was horrible, but at the same time, it exposed a lot of things, not only within our public school systems, within places of higher institutions, but also within our churches. I was one of those obstinate pastors who felt like if you guys on the left believe in the words of separation of church and state, then I guess the state has no business telling me to shut my doors.
Yeah, they don't. And the left doesn't believe in anything. If you understand that, except its own power. If you understand that, everything makes sense. People are like, well, I thought the left was for freedom and free speech, everything. No. They say they are when it's convenient, and when it's convenient to be something else, they're something else.
The late Francis Schaeffer said this, and I think you'd agree with it, Kurt, is if there is no God above the state, then the state becomes God. And that's unfortunately where a lot of our mainline denominations are falling today.
Well, it's so, you walk into there are all these big churches, and they're all empty.
Yeah.
And because what would you go, gosh, I remember even 20 years ago, 9/11 happened. I was walking with, I don't know if we were married then. I was walking with my wife down by the beach. There's no airplanes except for the occasional fighter. I knew I was going off to war.
Yeah.
We just had this disaster. We see a open door of a church, and we walk in and just sit down. The minister comes over and just say, welcome in here. I just think it's so important now that we just embrace peace and understanding. And I'm like, I have a different view of Christianity. It's the one with a sword.
That would be woke before it was vogue to go woke, right there.
Exactly. I don't understand the idea that Christians are supposed to be sissies. And I seem to be remembered to be, sell your cloak, buy a sword. Mm-hmm. At some point, you got to stand up for something.
Absolutely, and I think that is absolutely the case. Go ahead. Final word on that.
Yeah. I don't understand, and You know what I understand? Fortunately, we are gifted with discernment, and we can tell when things are wrong.
Yeah.
Well, that's wrong, and I'm not going to do that.
Amen to that. Thank you, Kurt, for giving that. And by the way, I'm going to give you the final word on this. We're going to come to the little part of the show here where I like to get some predictions. We've got 2 minutes left for this segment, and I appreciate you staying on a little longer than we originally agreed with, but we're about 90 days away from probably one of the most consequential elections in American history. I hate to put it that way, but that's basically where it's at. What are your thoughts? You think Trump's going to pull this out? If you took out the Kurt Schlichter crystal ball, what would you say?
I think we will see Trump around 300 electoral votes, and he'll win. I think we'll see 53 to 54 Senate seats. I think we will get a slight increase in the House, maybe 5 or 10. And again, I try and be conservative in my pick. You mentioned that not that many months ago, I thought Trump was going to have a great deal of trouble winning, and I did. But different facts require different analyses.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we are now. I think this is Trump's to win it. I think his campaign is much more professional. I think, he's doing about 1/100th of the mean Tweety stuff that used to drive us crazy. Yeah, he's going off on Brian Kemp. But that's really, people are freaking out about because it's the exception. He's not doing it that much. J.D. Vance, I think, is wonderful. I think he was a great choice. He's just, he's such an impressive guy. We've had the chance to meet him and his wife. And just such an impressive dude.
Well, Kurt, we enjoyed having you on today, by the way. And would you agree to come on in the future?
Sure.
I think our folks enjoyed you, judging by some of the comments here, and we appreciate having you on, Kurt. And again, Kurt Schlichter is senior columnist for Town Hall, trial lawyer, again, we'll forgive you for that, and a retired Army infantry colonel, and, of course, the author of several books. You can find him on Twitter at Kurt Schlichter. Kurt Schlichter, thank you so much for joining us today on Politics in the Pulpit. We'll be back in just a few minutes with some closing comments. All right, we're back for our final segment here on Politics and the Pulpit on your hometown station. This is your holy host, the Bishop of Santa Clarita, back for another opportunity to talk about the two things we're not supposed to talk about, religion and politics. It was great having Kurt Schlichter on. Of course, that's his first time with us today, and we're always honored to have first-time guests who, Lord willing, will end up being guests again. And so hopefully you responded well. And by the way, if you'll notice, Kurt is one of those guys that doesn't really want to, play ball the way the old Republican Party did. One of the things I wanted to ask Kurt, and I didn't talk about it, was just how much the party has changed, whether good or bad, obviously. But we've kind of gone from that image the Democrats have made of us several years ago as the country club Republicans, where it's been completely rebranded under President Donald Trump. And I think the rebranding in some instances is good. And as a Christian, I have to be honest and say in some areas, it could be stronger. And I just have to be honest about that. But at the same time, I think overall, I think the rebranding is good because it takes a lot of the ammo away from the Democrats in saying that we're just a party of a bunch of old, stale white people. But yet, Kamala Harris ends up choosing a stale white person to run with her. Again, a guy that I barely knew anything about, and I study all this stuff all the time. I consider politics my favorite non-contact sport, and so I knew a little bit about him as the governor of Minnesota. But one of the things that I think people need to realize is just how left Tim Walz really is. Not only this, yesterday it was on Twitter, I think it was trending Tampon Tim, and I think that was Dan Bongino that kind of started that ball rolling. But the reason why that was trending is because in his home state, he was making tampons available not just for students, as Hillary Clinton posted today. He was making tampons available for men. And it's so weird because I was watching a little clip of Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher from 2019, and he was interviewing Dennis Prager, and Dennis Prager was going on about some things, and he says, well, the left today believes that men can menstruate. And Bill Maher looks at him like, what do you mean men can menstruate? No one's saying that. Well, today, you could be, taken off Twitter, or not Twitter anymore, but taken off Facebook, or being criticized, or maybe even being fired, or shadow banned, or whatever the case might be, if you don't think that, well, quote, men can menstruate. And that's one of the things that Tim Walz did in Minnesota. And what a beautiful state. I mean, I've never been there, but I know some people that live there, and it's a beautiful state. A lot of hunters, a lot of fishermen. It's obviously cold in the winter. And the other thing that I think is amazing too, considering where we are now, almost 90 days away from the election, is I'm thinking how fast the news cycle moves. I need to remind us that it was just a few weeks ago that former President Trump, there was an attempt assassination at him. I mean, we've forgotten. I mean, that iconic image of him getting up with the bloody ear and pumping his fist and yelling, "Fight, fight, fight." And I remember seeing all of the newspaper articles and all of the conservative sites saying this race is over. And then the reset happened, with Kamala being, handpicked without one single primary vote. And as we come to the conclusion today, I also want to throw out a couple other things that are not going to be very popular with my conservative friends, but I think it's incumbent upon me to say this. I think we need to play the game that we have in front of us with the rules that we have in front of us. And the Democrats have always been good at early voting. And I think we need to take advantage of early voting. We can track our vote and make sure that it's been counted. And I would encourage you all to do that. I know some of you, no matter what I say, no matter what Congressman Garcia says, no matter what Donald Trump is going to say, some of you are going to vote on Election Day, and that's fine. But wouldn't it be great if both federally and in the state level and even on the local level, we had these appreciable leads going into Election Day? I mean, some of the things that does help. Mentally, that helps the candidate. That helps our mental stability going into November 5th, which is going to be a nerve-wracking day for so many of us. But the fact is, we should take full advantage of the fact that here in our state of California, we can vote at an ungodly early time. And I would encourage you, as soon as you get your ballot at home, go ahead and fill it out, send it, track it, make sure it's been counted, and have your conscience cleared there. Now, again, if you want to vote on Election Day, by all means, please do so. But I think that Laura Trump and Matt Whatley and some of these guys with the RNC are encouraging folks around the country to just vote early. And let me also say a few things about our local elections. Of course, we've had just about all these people I'm about to mention on. But listen, you need to vote for Gary Martin for Water District. You need to vote for Dr. Akash for School Board. You need to vote for Mike Garcia against George Whitesides. You need to vote for Patrick Lee Gibson and make sure the 40th is a conservative, law-abiding seat again. You need to vote for Suzette Valadares and maintain some common sense in the AV and in the section that she also is part of here in Santa Clarita with that seat. We've got to vote for these people, not just the federal ticket. I know that's the romantic part of this, right? Oh, we're going to vote for Trump. We're going to vote for Trump. Yeah, but we need that down ballot matriculation. We need the domino effect to be substantial. And I hope that, as Kurt was saying, that we're going to gain up to maybe 53, 54 in the Senate, and maybe gain somewhere between 15 and 20 in the House. I hope it's more than that. I really do, because we have an opportunity as Republicans, conservatives, and Christians. I'm not suggesting that that every conservative is a Christian, but I think that most Christians tend to be conservatives. You have no reason to sit this election out. This is a very fundamentally clear election now. It was already clear with Kamala. I mean, she's just a continuation of Biden. Same policies, different clothing. That's it. And now they have doubled down on their progressive attitudes and policies with Tim Walz, and there's no room at all. There is a clear contrast between Trump and Vance and Harris and Walz. And I hope that you're sitting in churches where pastors will encourage you to get out and vote early. And I hope that you're a part of a church where they'll actually allow you and hear conversations about this going into November 5th. Thanks for tuning in to Politics in the Pulpit today on your hometown station. We'll catch you next week, same bat time, same bat channel.